It's the book club for kids.
The book club for kids.
It's the book club for kids.
It's the book club for kids podcast.
Hi, I'm Kitty Felde. Did you ever have one of those days when everything seems to go wrong? Well, the hero in our book, Albie, has had one of those days.
Before I even took down the covers on Monday, I knew it would be a day not even donuts could solve.
That's our celebrity reader, Thaddeus Fitzpatrick, reading from Lisa Graff's novel, Absolutely Almost. We'll hear from Lisa, who tells us about writing her very first book.
When I was 14, my half-brother was born, and I decided that I wanted to write him a novel.
Our crew for this Book Club for Kids episode met at the Mamie Dowd Eisenhower Library in Broomfield, Colorado. They talk about the book and about some of the particular challenges for homeschooled kids.
Every week you have to go to a public school to socialize, and it's not that easy making friends because you barely ever see them.
This is the Book Club for Kids, the show where middle school readers talk about books. We'll tell you how you can be on the show a little later on. But let's start at the beginning. Why don't you guys just introduce yourselves?
My name is Bella, and I'm in 4th grade, and I go to the studio school in North Glen, Colorado.
My name is Sarah. I'm in 5th grade, and I'm homeschooled in Broomfield.
My name is Alex. I'm in 5th grade, and I go to Broomfield Academy in Broomfield.
I'm Stella. I'm homeschooled in Broomfield, Colorado. We are in the Mamie Dowd Eisenhower Library in Broomfield, Colorado.
So the book that we were reading is Absolutely Almost, and it's about a kid named Albie who has a best friend who's going on TV.
How come he's going on TV?
Because he's in a family that I think has quintuplets, or 2 sets of triplets. They want to make a TV show out of them because it was so amazing that they had 2 sets of triplets.
The book's about Albie, and he is just an almost. He's not really good at anything, so kind of gives up on things until he meets this babysitter, Callista, and she makes him better at drawing and helps him with stuff.
Let's hear a little bit from the book, a scene between Albie and Callista. It's read by New York City actor Thaddeus Fitzpatrick, who not only loves performing, he also loves discovering new stories, like this one.
Before I even took down the covers on Monday, I knew it would be a day not even donuts could solve. I told Callista that when she came over early to help me get ready for school. "It'll be all right, Albie, I promise." That's what Callista said. "Get up, okay? We have to leave soon or you'll be late, and I'll be there to pick you up when you get out of school. And I have a special birthday present for you, and we can get donuts too if you need them. 3 kinds. I curled up tighter into a ball under the covers. "No," I told her. "Albie." Callista sat down on the foot of the bed. "You're being silly." That's what I thought she was going to tell me. That's what Mom would have said. "You don't have a choice, so just get out of bed already." That's what Dad would have told me. Callista didn't say those things. Instead, she pulled the covers gently back from my face, and when I felt her do that, I opened my squeezed-shut eyes to look at her, even though she was blurry from the tears I've been trying not to cry. "Oh, Albie." That's what she said. "What happened?" And so I told her. I sat up and I sniffled and I wiped my face, and maybe I even cried a little bit more while I sat and said it all. But right then I didn't even really care that much. I told Callista everything. I told her about the stupid baby who didn't even know the Vulcan salute. I told her about how much I missed gummy bears. I told her about how it stunk not to be a famous TV star, even though I never knew before I wanted to be one in the first place. I told her about how much I hated Darren Eichelman more than 1,000,000 hissing cockroaches. I told her about the A-10 Thunderbolt, the first one and the second one, and the smashing and the smithereens. I told her about the cupcakes. I told her about the retard and the freak baby and the dummy. I told her that I couldn't go to school. Not again. Not ever. And when I was done with all the telling, I got back under my covers and curled into a ball, my knees against my stomach, and Callista rubbed my back in tiny circles. And I let her. "You're right," she told me softly. "This is too big for donuts." "Everyone deserves a sad day once in a while," Callista told me. "Sometimes things are too big for cheering up. Sometimes the best way to make things better is to just let yourself be sad for a little bit."
Let's talk about one of the things that Callista does. You know, she lets Albie, who has a really bad day, take a day off of school.
Well, I kind of liked it that Callista gave him a sad day because it gave him a chance to kind of regather his, strength and his wits and everything. And so it really helped him. But then again, it was a bad thing because Callista got fired because of it.
I think it was a great idea to have a sad day. And I think every kid in America who's really depressed, if their first and only pet died. Sometimes when you're depressed you can feel horrible and then you can't concentrate on your work, so what's the point?
Why is Albie having a hard time? Why is he not good at anything?
Because his parents don't have faith in him, because his dad's never around and he doesn't really fit in his family. He doesn't really put faith into things because nobody puts faith into him.
He tries to do things, and if he doesn't do it right the first time, he just gives up and says, "No, I'm not going to try this."
Well, let's talk a bit about this wonderful babysitter who shows up. Or she doesn't like to be called a babysitter, or he doesn't like to call her a babysitter. Callista.
I don't need a babysitter.
They make flashcards for spelling, which Albie hasn't ever done before, and it kind of helped him because before he was striving and only got 4 out of 10 spelling words on his spelling test. But he got really excited one day because he got 6 out of 10, and he was really happy.
At school, he has not a best friend, but he has a friend named Betsy who gets made fun of because she stutters a lot. Somebody found out that his friend is on a TV show, and they make him think he's cool. And so he tries to make Betsy cool. So he leaves these little cards in his desk, hints to be cool, but she asks him to leave him alone because she doesn't like those.
Are you guys cool kids at school?
I don't think that I'm not cool, but I don't think I'm cool at the same time. So I'm somewhere in between.
In between, Albie was in between too.
Well, how come people have an easier time making friends than others?
Some kids might not be good at making friends because they've been homeschooled.
I'm going to back up to what you said. You said homeschool kids have a harder time making friends. Let's ask these 2 homeschool people. Stella?
Well, I think it's a homeschool law or something. I'm not exactly sure.
What do you mean a homeschool law?
I think if you're homeschooled, you have to do this.
Make friends?
No, once a day every week, you have to go to a public school to socialize. And it's not that easy making friends because you barely ever see them, but you still get to talk to people and get to know them.
We don't do that.
So how do you make friends?
Our church. So my mom's the event instructor person. So we have to go and help her, and then we have to teach the kids. So we get to make friends that way.
You have your community.
Yep.
There's a line in the book. It's the grandfather who says it, and he says there have to be some rocks at the bottom to support the top. What does that mean?
There needs to be some kind of support at the bottom of a structure so that it doesn't all collapse. Because things in real life can't hover like they can in Minecraft. So it's all going to collapse if you take the bottom supports away. Grandpa was basically saying that Albie didn't have any of the bottom supports, and so he was collapsing.
Sounds like the perfect time to speak to the person who wrote those wonderful words, Lisa Graff. Lisa, where did Albie come from?
I feel like he's one of those characters that sort of popped into my head, and I wish I had a great inspiration for him. But the character of Callista, who's the nanny in the book, she's a little bit based on me. When I first moved to New York for graduate school, I worked as a nanny for a couple different families, and so I was inspired by, living in New York City and being a nanny to these kids, and it was just such a different environment than I'd been in California. She's definitely more fun than I am, but she was inspired by me, and that sort of led into the creation of the book. But I think that Albie comes from that feeling that I think everyone has of not thinking that they're good enough at something, or that thinking that everyone is better.
Well, did you as the nanny make some, I don't want to say questionable choices, but some choices that might have gotten you in trouble?
I definitely did not. I'm much more straight-laced than Callista is in the book. There were definitely times where I felt like I didn't agree with the parents, and I kind of wished I had more guts to do something that they wouldn't have done, but they're also not my kids, right? So I didn't. But so I got to explore that a little bit in the book. And I think, you always feel like if you spend a lot of time with a kid that you understand them the best, that you're the person who knows what's right for them. And, if you're not their parent, you probably don't. So I always try to respect that. But in literature, I can do whatever the heck I want. So Callista does make some questionable decisions. I always think it's funny when people get really mad at me that she gets fired in the book. I have kids say, "Why did you have Callista get fired?" And I always think that if I were the mom in that book, I absolutely would have fired her. So
has that become stronger now that you're a mom yourself?
If I found out someone help my kid ditch school, I'd be so mad. But from Albie's point of view, that was absolutely the right thing she should have done, So I think it's funny looking at that from a kid perspective, and from an adult perspective, it's very different.
So does this book remind you of another book you've read?
I don't relate this book to another book. I relate it to somebody who's my friend, who has the same struggles, who, if he can't do something, he gives up right away. And if nobody puts their faith in him, then he doesn't put his faith in himself. So technically, it's like I know Albie.
That's a nice way to put it. How do you guys get self-confidence?
Well, I think of all the accomplishments I've made and all of my good grades that I've gotten, and I sometimes think about the bad grades to inspire me to try and get better grades.
I think I get my self-confidence from books. I like to read a lot of books, and then if I'm in a situation like the characters, I like to kind of imagine I'm the character and then find a way to get through it like they did.
I find self-confidence in two things. When I'm writing my books that soon hope one day becomes published, and since I'm Catholic from going to church and stuff.
All right, favorite books. What's your favorite book?
I like books based on dragons, and so I have quite a few, and I like the longer type books, I like reading 700, 600-page books.
So was it Aragon? Was that one in the book?
Yes, and I really liked it a lot. It was really good.
I like the Warrior series and Grounded, The Adventures of Rapunzel in the Time series, because it's adventurous and everyone thinks Rapunzel's running away, but she actually just got lured out of her tower.
Favorite book?
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
Why that particular one?
Because of Mrs. Umbridge. She's stubborn and short and ugly.
There's a series called The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Boat of Her Own Making, and I'd say the first book, which is that title, is my favorite. I like her name, which is September, and I like the name September. And it's funny because there's this evil queen, and all she cares about is shoes and clothes. It talks about time, and there's a little science and magic in it, and alchemy. And I like to kind of think of the world in that way.
Your turn, Lisa Graff. What's your favorite book?
Well, my favorite book for kids is 100% Holes by Louis Sachar. That actually was the book that I read when I was in undergrad, and when I was still figuring out that I hated being a biology major, I would take breaks in between my classes in the bookstore, in the university bookstore, and they had a very small children's book section. And I would read children's books on the floor of the bookstore because I didn't have enough time to walk back to my dorm room, so I would just sit on the floor of the bookstore and read. And I found Holes that way, and I read it on the floor of the bookstore, and I fell absolutely in love with that book. And it's kind of silly, but that was the first time that it occurred to me that people were writing really good children's books right now. It had never really occurred to me that that was an actual job. I just thought that books sort of came fully formed into the world by geniuses, and then I got to read them. But because this book had just been published, it had just come out, I realized, oh, someone is actually doing this, and that's their actual job. And that's when the light bulb sort of went off, and I realized that maybe this was something I could learn how to do and look into.
We'll have a list of everybody's favorite books at our website, bookclubforkids.org. And if you'd like to be on the show yourself, just have your teacher, parent, or librarian send us an email to kitty@bookclubforkids.org. Either we'll come to your classroom or library, or we will tell you how you can record yourselves and send it to us. That email again, kitty@bookclubforkids.org. Book Club for Kids is funded in part by the D.C. Commission on the Arts and Humanities, an agency supported in part by the National Endowment for the Arts, and by listeners like you. Thanks this week to writer Lisa Graff and celebrity reader Thaddeus Fitzpatrick. And thanks to our readers, Bella, Sarah, Alex, and Stella. And thanks to Susan Dunn at the Broomfield Public Library in Broomfield, Colorado, for organizing our visit. Jonathan Jensen composed and performed our music, and our logo designer is Emma Steinkellner. We have a free newsletter for teachers, parents, and librarians full of free tips about how to turn kids into lifelong readers. You can sign up at the website, bookclubforkids.org. And you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even Pinterest. And if you have time, please do leave us a review on iTunes. It is the perfect way to introduce the show to other teachers and librarians around the world. I'm Kitty Felde. Thanks so much for listening.